Hello, my name is Ian McCall, and this is part of the series of videos on dermatology for dentists and dental students. Today we're going to look at lip and intraoral pigmentation. Now, any dark or black pigmentation in the mouth raises the prospect of melanoma. We're always worried about it. We don't think of melanoma in the inside of the mouth, but we should. There are melanocytes in the inside of the mouth, and they're responsible with the pigment that they produce for, say, melanoplikia, the physiological pigmentation that particularly dark-skinned people get in the inside of the mouth. But nonetheless, any really dark or black pigmentation in the mouth raises the prospect of melanoma, and so you generally have to biopsy it. Now, dentists are also going to see a lot of amalgam tattoos, and this is particularly on the buccal surface opposite some heavily filled posterior molars. You can get other extraneous substances, India ink and graphite, people sticking pencils inside their mouth, and they can cause tattoo-like lesions as well. We've mentioned about the racial factors, physiological oral pigmentation. This is probably the commonest cause worldwide of intraoral pigmentation. We don't see it so much in white populations, but you'll certainly see it where you've got colored populations. But remember, there are other causes of intraoral pigmentation too. There's a condition called Addison's disease that we'll look at below, a disorder of the adrenal glands with excess ACTH, adrenocorticotrophic hormone, being produced by the pituitary, then driving the pigment system. And so you'll get pigmentation all over. You'll also get intraoral pigmentation. You'll get it also on the palms of the hands. And then heavy metal poisoning, mercury, lead, silver. Silver's the one to watch for just now. There are these colloidal silver machines that are out there where people, are advised to take a small amount of colloidal silver orally. But of course, most people think if half a teaspoonful is good for me, a tablespoonful will be even better. And they can get silver deposited in their skin. They can also get it deposited inside the mouth. It gives and on the surface of the eyes, the sclera. It gives you a sort of bluey color. Then if you look at lips and you see freckles, you'll see it, the commonest cause of freckles are these labial melanotic macules, just simple freckles. Just as you can get freckles in your face or in your arms, you can get them on the surface of your lips as well. Usually they'll follow a bit of a sunburn there. But you can get excess lip freckling in these two syndromes, Peutz-Jeghers and Logia-Hunziker, and we'll look at those shortly in some pictures as well. Then drugs. There's always drugs that can cause oral pigmentation, and the particular ones are hydroxychloroquine, that's used to treat lupus or it's used in malaria, and minomycin, that's used in rosacea, so tetracycline. And then, of course, God bless the smokers of this world, there's tobacco causing intraoral pigmentation, but it's usually really heavy smokers, and this is called smoker's melanosis. And I think we've got some pictures of that. Let's first of all have a look at at these images. Now, this is from an Indian journal, I think Contemporary Dental, I forget. But anyway, it's a case that's presented there, and you can see the extensive pigmentation that's in the inside of this mouth. This is a common area in the undersurface of the tongue. I would have found that very worrying. I certainly would have wanted to biopsy it, which they did, and they excluded all other causes. But this was physiological oral pigmentation. It can be a solitary patch. It can be diffuse patches. The color can vary from gray right through to, black. But it'll be in a colored individual if it's going to be physiologic like this. So have a look at the reference that's listed in the website there. That's a patient with Addison's disease. Now, Addison's, as I've said, usually it's an autoimmune disease that knocks out the adrenal cortex, and so you don't produce your adrenaline, noradrenaline. Your pituitary then tries to drive this with ACTH, and it's that causes the pigmentation. You can see the darkish color of this patient. You can see that sort of bluey-gray pigmentation in what's on the surface of the tongue. It's on the buccal surface there as well. So if you think someone might have Addison's, check their palm or creases because they usually get pigment there as well. This is a lady, it's not a great example, but if you see a lot of freckling or pigmentation on the lips and some intraoral pigmentation like this, go looking at the fingernails and you may just find pigment lines in some of them. Now, we're not showing it in this particular patient, but lines of pigment in several nails, plus freckling on the lips, plus some pigmentation like that on the gums, then they've got a condition called the Logia-Hunziker syndrome. So it's the nail pigment bands that give you the clue that that's the diagnosis. Just a nice one to diagnose. There's buccal pigmentation, uniform bluish color, looks somewhat like a blue nevus. Blue nevus looks that color because the pigment's fairly deep in the dermis, and it's the way light's reflected that gives you that uniform blue color. But in this case, it's probably due to amalgam in a filling here. It's one of the commonest causes of buccal pigmentation like this. That's the freckling of the Puigdjega. Look at all the freckles. Well, look at the freckles he's got all around. But look at the accentuated freckles he's got in his lip here. And he'll also have pigmentation intraorally. If you see this in someone, then they may well have polyps throughout their bowel, large bowel, small bowel. They're usually hematomas. They don't usually develop into malignancy. But you've always got to keep that in the back of your mind. So excessive pigmentation like this could be Puigdjega. Here's an elderly man. This is a similar sort of thing he's got. You can see the very obvious dark freckles that he has here, and he had extensive freckles in the back of his hands as well. But you don't, that's abnormal, that degree of freckling on the buccal, on the lip surface there. But that's normal freckle. That's a labial melanotic macule. That's the usual sort of freckle that all of us can get after a bit of a sunburn on the lower lip. It's flat. It's not raised at all. And a useful thing is to get a dermatoscope and have a look. Often they have lines, linear lines of pigment running like this. Usually a fairly sharp cutoff, as in this case. And this is benign. It's really quite superficial. I mean, you can freeze this off with liquid nitrogen. If there were any abnormal characteristics when you looked at it with a dermatoscope, or if it was continuing to increase in size, then you certainly should get it histologically examined. You could do a punch biopsy here. The other easy thing is just to do a very superficial shave biopsy. Stick some local in there till it's edematous, and take the equivalent of a fine razor blade, curl it, and just shave that off. Send it down to histology. You get rid of it and you get histology at the same time. But a benign labial melanotic macule, just freckling of the lower lip. There's, you get moles in the inside of the mouth as well, nevi, junctional, and mind you, I haven't seen compound nevi in the inside of the mouth. That just means they're slightly raised. This, you can see that blue color. Excuse me. This is the blue nevus on the hard palate. Look at the, well, first of all, the uniform color and a very regular edge there. They're not big spicules of pigment sort of going out into the surrounding skin. That should tell you that it's benign. You'd still probably want to biopsy it. We talked about drugs causing pigmentation in the mouth as well. This is blue-gray pigmentation of the gingiva from minocycline. Minomycin is a tetracycline, can be used to treat acne, but it's often used to treat rosacea, and it's being used over a long period of time because it's difficult to control rosacea. And especially if it's high dose, more than 100 milligrams a day, then it gets deposited in the gingiva, but also sometimes in bone and in cartilage. It can turn thyroid cartilage black. You can get it deposited in the cartilage of the ear as well. Usually gives you a grey sort of ripple pigmentation on the face or the neck, particularly in sun-exposed areas. But there's that blue-grey pigmentation of minomycin deposited in this area here. This is smoker's melanosis. If you're a heavy smoker, then it actually stimulates melanin production in the inside of the mouth, presumably in some sort of protective way to try and stop damage. But some smokers will have this diffuse type of pigmentation, both in buccal surfaces and in gingival surfaces here. And it's melanin that's, it's not staining from nicotine or what have you, it's melanin that's actually being stimulated to be produced by the mucosal lining. So smoker's melanosis. Unfortunately, this is a melanoma. Now, this is up on the hard palate here. You can see how dark it is. You can see how irregular the edge is here. Look at the varying colors in here. And this is possibly an amelanotic part, you know, one bit that has become so de-differentiated, it's not even producing pigment anymore. But you can see how this is extending. This is under someone's plate, and how it's extending over the margin of the gums here as well. So this would have been wicked. You'd need to biopsy this, but this would not be a nice thing to have. We've got the reference for this image as well, so take a look at that image when you're you know, going through the text and the like here. So you can see that intraoral pigmentation can have a variety of causes, from physiologic to Addison's disease, to the Logia-Hunziker syndrome, a bit of amalgam pigmentation, Peutz-Jeghers with all the freckles, extensive freckles on the lower lip here. But there's the common one, the labial melanotic macule. And you can get moles, nevi inside the mouth. This is the blue nevus. You get drug-induced pigmentation, smoker's melanosis, and unfortunately, a really extensive melanoma in the inside of the mouth. Biopsy is essential in any of these atypical ones. This we diagnose quite happily with a dermatoscope, and as I say, can be easily shaved off. But in most cases, if there's extensive, and especially if there's new intraoral pigmentation, then you really have to do a punch biopsy, probably even a couple if it's an extensive area. So intraoral pigmentation, it's important, and biopsy is essential in the majority of cases to establish a diagnosis. Thank you very much.